we don't ever tell a founder, listen, let's try and do this temporarily so that you can maximize valuation. Because look, that's
Mm,
something that buyers see through, sponsors see through,
mm,
right? The one thing we always say is there's a prep phase before any transaction. And that's those 20 parameters I was telling you, right? You have to understand as a
mm,
founder, which side of the scale are you on? Are
mm,
you doing really well on those 20 parameters, or are you not doing well? If you're not
mm,
doing well, you need to find an answer to address it upfront, right?
mm.
Because those are the things that affect your valuation ultimately.
My name is Anand, and I come from the business team of Tracxn. Today, we have Mr. Ripun with us, who has wide experience in the investment banking sector. Ripun, can you please walk us through your experience as an investment banker?
Sounds good. Thanks, Anand, and thank you for having me. I've been doing banking for more than a couple of decades now. Started back in early 2000s, where I initially joined a couple of friends who were starting an M&A advisory. Did that for about 6 years. Took a break for a few years. Wanted to try my hand at some tech startups, which was a very fun experience. But then
Mhm,
realized I enjoy banking too much, and
mhm,
decided to co-found Novistra in 2014-15, and have
mhm.
been focused on this space ever since. So it's been a long journey.
Okay, that's great. So, Ripun, may I know about your educational background? How did you start, and how did the investment banking come into picture?
Sure. So I think two stints for me. I think I grew up in India, went to SRCC in Delhi, which was
Mhm,
where I graduated. Was very interested in finance from there, and wanted to, was very curious about investment banking.
right.
Obviously, you know little when you're studying, and when
Hmm,
I started, I think I started enjoying it a lot. I started, liking the people I met. Uh,
mhm,
the focus on the industries, all of that was very exciting.
mhm.
um, the second stint for me was when I went to London Business School. I did my MBA from there, and
Amazing.
again, it just got more interesting from there on. And that was sort of what pushed me to get into sort of set up Novistra.
Okay, that's great. So after studying from SRCC, you went to London's business school. And can you help me with your first investment banking deal? How did you get that deal? Was it from someone you knew, or how did you arrive at it?
Oh gosh, I don't even know if I remember that. I think it was look, when you in the initial years, obviously
Hmm.
it was a little bit more of references that helped us get
Correct.
deals.
Correct.
That's what got us our first deal.
Right.
But I think fast forward to Novistra, which is probably more relevant. I think again, it came really with the network I had and the people I knew, but also
Okay.
more because we were industry focused. People in the industry knew us, and that's
Mhm.
how they reach out and ask us to be an advisor to them. But I
Mhm.
don't recall the specific first deal how I got it, but
Okay.
it's from all the two, right? Some either referral or somebody reaching out.
All right, all right. So I believe that after few deals that you get through referrals, the network keeps on adding, and more deals come into picture. And then sometimes you also come across platforms like Tracxn, from where you can scout deals. So at the moment, if we see the year 2025 and the year 2026, all the deals that you have done, what has been the source of those deals?
So I think 26. I think we've done about 7 transactions already.
Oh,
I
great.
think out of the 7, probably 4 or 5 would be references, and 2 might be based on through our origination team, right? Which would look
Mhm.
at sources like Tracxn, and help us identify the right companies that we could potentially work with, and get a
Mhm.
transaction. So it's an interesting combination, right? It's both your own network that increases, but then you also have a origination team that assists you to continue to grow your network, right?
Correct. I believe that with time, your network also increases and it becomes much fruitful. And at the same point of time, these data intelligence platforms like Tracxn, they also come into picture. And as
Yeah.
you say that you have done 7 deals so far in the year 2026, that's amazing. All right.
Mm.
So moving ahead, Ripun, we see that AI has been taking over almost all industries.
Yeah.
So how do you see AI impacting the investment banking vertical across the globe?
Yeah, good question. And look, we are actually very excited about AI as an opportunity,
Hmm.
and that's how we look at it. I think fundamentally, banking is an outcome-based model, right? So AI will only enhance the quality of what we do, rather than
Right.
threat, right? In the end, and that's how we should think about it. But
Correct.
also, banking has two aspects, right? There's a science and there's an art, right? I
Right.
think the science part there was going to be a lot more AI effect there, which is not a
Hmm.
bad, right? So more efficiency, better quality data, all of that will start to come in. But on the art side, which is really the judgment that we use, the relationships that we have, the ability to be creative around how we structure transactions,
Hmm.
that only gets augmented by AI, not replaced, right? So I think we are quite excited because we think that AI is going to enable us to do a lot more than we did in the past, and
Hmm.
perhaps get more creative and reach much different deals than we did in the past, right? So that's why we're very excited about it.
Okay, all right. So, one instance when I was speaking with one of the experienced investment bankers in England, so he has more than 50 years of experience. So, on this front, he told me that AI is not going to replace the investment bankers, but it is definitely going to replace investment bankers who do not use AI. So, maybe the deals are coming faster to the IBs who are using AI. Now we have custom AI agents which are working in the background even when you are on the move, and they are giving deals to you. And once you land at a different place, you have few more deals in your funnel. So that's my opinion on how AI has been shaping the investment banking vertical. Now, coming to the current market, Ripon, how would you describe the current M&A and fundraising environment?
So, Anand, we are highly sector focused, right? And each
Hmm.
sector has a very
Hmm.
different outlook, right? So, for example,
Hmm.
we do work in tech and services, which
Hmm.
is getting impacted by AI, right? So that
Hmm.
has a very different outlook than
Hmm.
education, which again is another sector we focus on.
Okay.
We do a lot of work in the exhibition and event space, in the financial
Hmm.
institution space. So the way we look at it as a firm is each sector is very, very different, right? And the impact on
Hmm.
that at a particular time is quite different. As an example, during COVID, the events and
Hmm.
exhibition sector was absolutely dead, right? We couldn't get anything done. There was no
Right.
revenue of that, right? Today,
Hmm.
it's one of the hottest sectors because everybody wants physical interaction, right?
Correct.
Similarly, on the education side, we're seeing a huge trend where
Hmm.
a lot of British brands, for example, in schools are entering the Indian market, right? And we are at
Hmm.
the forefront of that. So we're seeing a lot of opportunity there, and we've done several transactions there. Tech and
Hmm.
service, because of impact of AI, we're seeing tailwinds and headwinds, right? So
Hmm.
we've done some transactions in the data and analytics space, which are gaining significantly because of AI, and so we see a huge boost in M&A there. But then
Hmm.
there are other areas which are getting impacted by AI, and there
Hmm.
again we see a lot of M&A, but for
Hmm.
different reasons, right? We have seen new players like tech companies emerging. So I think it's
Hmm.
very industry dependent. But the way we think about it is if there is anything in the market that is disrupting the industry or both tailwinds and headwinds, right? It results in a lot more M&A.
Correct. So, which sectors are seeing the most deal activity?
So the ones we focus on, so tech and services is a lot of activity right now because of lots of changes. Education, we continue to see a lot of changes, right?
Hmm.
I think events as well, we see a lot of changes. So the core sectors that we focus on, we're seeing a lot of activity happening. I
Hmm.
think if we were in, and again, we a year ago, if we were doing, let's say, industrials, I would have been probably slightly more bearish. Today, even industrials is very hot because of defense and aerospace, right? So I think it
Correct.
really depends on every sector and every subsector. And it's very difficult to generalize, right? Which one is not going to be seeing any
Yeah.
activity.
Right. Right. Got it. Coming to fundraising part, Ripun, what makes a company attractive to investors in the recent times?
So as a firm, Anand, we do a lot more M&A than fundraising.
Okay.
Having said that, I think the way we look at
Hmm,
fundraising is, again, depending
hmm,
on the stage of the company, right? So
hmm,
we would do a lot more late stage,
hmm,
middle market to late stage companies when we advise clients. There,
hmm,
the requirement is very different from an early stage founder and company, right?
hmm,
So for us, it's more about their growth rate, right? Where the industry is going. You know,
hmm, hmm,
what is
hmm,
the moat they've created versus what are the adjacencies they can potentially add. So it's very
hmm,
different than perhaps somebody who's raising series A, series B, right? Which is a much more early stage.
hmm,
Also, tech versus non-tech is quite different. So some of the industries we focus on will not have as much tech, like education. And again, it's not ed tech, we're talking about more traditional schools, but
hmm,
there the type of revenue that gets generated, the overall market need and growth for education is so large that we
hmm,
see a lot of investor interest and appetite coming in there, right? So I think
hmm,
you almost start top down, right? Where is the industry going? What are the trends? And then you
hmm,
almost look at it from the company's perspective. Hey, why is this company different? How can it, how can it actually capture that growth? How can it
hmm.
grow? How can it? What is that moat or that unique proposition it has? And then sort of take it from there.
Okay, so coming to the M&A part, I would like to know what qualities do buyers look for beyond the financial performance of a company?
I think there are lots of qualitative things they look at. So
Mhm.
look, the numbers are important, but the biggest thing and I'll separate between a financial investor and a strategic investor, right? When you do M&A.
Correct.
So for a strategic investor, it's really about the synergy, right?
Hmm.
How can 1 + 1 make five, right? Almost. That's
Right.
how you think of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that goes across, right? The
Hmm.
team,
Hmm.
their offering, can it be cross-sold? Their client base. We actually have a parameter of maybe 20 to 30 things that we look at
Hmm.
in a
Okay.
business when we
Hmm.
decide, is it
Hmm.
something that somebody will want to buy or invest in,
Hmm.
and how can we stay ahead of it as we go into the market, right? So is it customer concentration? Do they have large clients that are not not fully utilized? Can a bigger company help them with that, right? So on the
Hmm.
strategic side, synergy matters a lot, and it's
Hmm.
it's, it's all of these softer things that they would look at. If it's a financial sponsor that's looking to buy or invest, again,
Hmm.
some of those pieces are still relevant, but for them, it's also about how can they improve efficiency, how can they improve margins, how can they potentially do more M&A to add to
Hmm.
that platform and grow it,
Hmm.
right? Some of that starts to become pretty relevant as well from a financial sponsor, but both will look at it slightly differently, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Correct, correct. Yes, it does. These podcasts, we have a lot of viewers who are the founders. So, what should founders look for when selecting an advisor?
Look, I think the way we think about it is obviously what they're one is the person who's actually talking to them and the advisor itself, right? The firm is very important, but also the
Hmm.
team is very, very important, right? Because
Hmm.
a sale process is a very it's a very intense process for any founder. It's very emotional.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's the first time they're selling a business, so having somebody that you can work with and enjoy working with is very important. But I
Correct.
think as you actually get into the more of the qualitative pieces, um,
Hmm.
their understanding of your industry matters the most in our view, right?
Hmm.
If they understand the depth of industry, if they've done work in your industry,
Hmm.
I would say 90% of the relearning is not required, right? Because they know your business, they know what the benchmarks are, they know where you will get questioned and where you are better than others, right? Which you also don't know because you're so internally focused. I
Hmm.
think the fact that if they've done work in your industry, their relationships with buyers and sponsors will make a
Hmm.
big difference, right? Because
Hmm.
their ability to then structure a transaction that meets objectives is quite different, right? And then
Hmm.
also, it depends on what you're looking for. So, for example, Anand, we do cross-border transactions mostly, right? Most of
Correct.
our sectors benefit from cross-border transactions.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
we always tell this to our clients. Listen, if you want to do it pure domestic transactions, maybe we're not the best guy for you, right? But the
Hmm.
minute you cross border, then cultural understanding, understanding the other side, all of that, those softer aspects also start to come into play. So like I said, art and science, I think the science piece, a lot of advisors do. I think the art is what differentiates an advisor.
Correct, correct. I totally agree with this. One more question from the founder side.
Sure.
So when it comes to the valuation before an exit, what should the founders do to maximize the valuation in your opinion?
Look, I think, when we say this with, to everybody, you shouldn't game anything, right? I think you should go in with the way the business is running. Ultimately, look, the goal is to get the right partner and the best value for what you built. I think we don't ever tell a founder, listen, let's try and do this temporarily so that you can maximize valuation. Because look, that's something that buyers see through, sponsors see through, right? So I would almost say, I think the one thing we always say is there's a prep phase before any transaction. And that's those 20 parameters I was telling you, right? You have to understand as a founder, which side of the scale are you on? Are you doing really well on those 20 parameters, or are you not doing well? If you're not doing well, you need to find an answer to address it upfront, right? So, because those are the things that affect your valuation ultimately. And if you're doing well, then how can you leverage that to get better value? I think that's the better way to think about it, right? How do I look at different parameters and how can I maximize my value based on where I'm performing? That you understand what the other side is looking for and you can leverage that, then your ability to get a slight better value increases.
Amazing, amazing. So this advice is really useful for them. So they come up with several questions in the comment section that when you speak with the next investment banker, we want this question to be addressed. So I have a few of those questions which I am asking you. Ripun, I am really delighted the way this conversation is going, because when I have interacted with most of the investment bankers, I feel that they know the science, but with you, I feel you know the science as well as the art. You have definitely worked on it, and all this is skill which gets improved over a period of time. You also mentioned that you find deals through your own networks and certain data intelligence platforms also you have been using. So I want to know, how do you identify the acquisition opportunities before others? Because these data tools are available to everyone. The deals are posted and they are round the clock, they're checking it. And the network is also established for most of the IBs. So how do you identify acquisition opportunities before others?
I think you'll be surprised, Anand. There are still many founders who don't have advisors, right? And I think for us, building relationships with founders over the years has helped a lot. I also think we have been in situations where a founder has engaged a different advisor, and we've told them, please, finish your engagement with them, and obviously we are there if you need us after. And we've seen a lot of them come back to us afterwards, right? But the reason why they would come to us or choose us, apart from, of course, maybe knowing us, is the specific things I mentioned earlier, right? Our industry understanding, or our cross-border experience, or the fact that we've done something similar in the past, and we are able to give them very realistic situation. We're not just doing it to get a mandate, but we're telling them very openly, here is what the challenge is, and here is where we think you can gain, right? And I think that's what's helped us a lot, just to stay truthful and honest, right, to everybody.
Correct. So I don't want to make you uncomfortable in this podcast, but I want to understand from you that what's the biggest lesson that you have learned from your unsuccessful deals?
Look, and again, it may not be only unsuccessful. I think it is how to navigate how founders think is not easy. And I think it's not a lesson. It's more of something we all become good at over the years, right? And everybody's unique, right? For us, there's an additional challenge, Anand. We deal with culturally very different founders, right? Sometimes somebody in the US versus somebody in India versus somebody in the Philippines or somebody in the UK, right? They all have very different things they want from a transaction, and that, I think, is the lesson that is very hard to put in a document and say, hey, this is how you should operate. But that only comes with experience and years of experience. And that probably is the one lesson we've all learned over many years.
All right.
or I'm still learning actually.
Yes, yes, it's a continuous process.
Exactly.
Also, Ripun, I would like to ask you that if someone wants to pursue a career in investment banking, how should they plan it? What should be their course of action from, say, from the school time itself?
And that's a very good question. And look, I think it's changed a lot, Anand, especially in the world of AI, right? And I think people need to
Hmm,
realize that.
hmm,
In my view, it is not just about the technical skill. I think the technical skill is very important. I
hmm.
say this to everybody who joins us as well. You have to do the hard time to be able to get to understanding the art, right?
Correct.
And for that to happen, you've got to be a domain person. You've got to understand the industry. You've got to genuinely be curious. You've got to be
Hmm,
able to read up, right? Have mentors, right? Make sure you are not just focused on numbers if you're a CFA, but you understand the business logic behind it. So I think it's that extra piece that takes a little bit more effort than just doing a model or a sim. I think that's what's really important if you want to be successful, right? And so when you get into banking, your curiosity, your ability to understand some of this, I think becomes quite fundamental than it used to be earlier, right?
all right, Ripun. So, whatever I wanted to ask you, you have explained it in too much detail, and it has been kind of a candid conversation. I am sure you would have gone through few questions that we sent you over an email, and this conversation went to completely beyond that. So it was more insightful for me as an interviewer.
Thank you very much, Anand. I appreciate your time and thanks for having me.